on to the main event. Is everyone ready? Okay. Before we get started, the way this is going to work, and I know a lot of you guys watching kind of have heard us talk about this now for a while. We have 4 teams of finalists. We have 2 folks that work together as a team, but we have 4 visualizations, and we just want to congratulate everyone that you see here. Raven, unfortunately, isn't with us today. She wasn't able to make it today. So she won't be presenting her viz, but you can see it right over here. So we will have the other 3 groups of finalists walk through their viz, and they'll each have about 8-10 minutes to kind of share with you guys, here's what they built. They're just a reminder for everyone, there was no data. We didn't provide like a specific data set or not even a topic. So this was the type of contest that folks had plenty of time to work on. We gave everyone a few months to work on it, and it was pretty much wide open. You could kind of do whatever you wanted to do, not any real guidance. So we've got several different topics, and I believe we are going to start with Matt Pimenta, who has this viz over here that you guys see all the way on the right about United States presidents. And Matt, if you'd like to share your screen, and maybe as you're turning on your video and pulling up your screen, you can tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started with Tableau, how long you've been using the software.
Sure thing. Well, thanks, Karen, for the introduction there. My name is Matt Pimenta. I was led to Tableau via my experience in marketing analytics, really driving BI development and data strategy for different ad agencies here in Atlanta for brands like Verizon, Porsche, Marriott, and Georgia Natural Gas, among others, but those might be some names that folks know on the call. I'm very passionate about interactivity and user experience. You know, it was amazing to me when I started using Tableau and realized, wait, I've been doing all this stuff manually. You mean I can just build a report once and just feed data into it, and it's going to calculate the percentage change and thresholds and just so much. It really changed the game for my team and I back then, and I've just never looked back. It's really best in class for a reason. I love bringing clients data strategy into this era of self-service insight where they don't have to ask us for reports or they don't have to know SQL. They can just go in based on what we've built and really click around and find things out about their data that they might not have known existed. So other than that, you know, when I'm not failing to sell sand keys to stakeholders, you can find me playing guitar and writing music for anyone who's unfortunate enough to be in earshot. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here. Just want to quickly thank you know, the ATUG team for organizing this. Jen, Karen, Nelson, Nathan, Mr. Wilson. All of you together make this just an amazing community here in Atlanta. So thank all of you for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work and another layer of complexity here with a competition, certainly. And big thank you to Ken and Kevin. Thank you for your time and expertise here. Ken, I had the privilege of attending your Show Me TC18 presentation with Matt Chambers, and it kind of blew my mind. Like, I was introduced really to sand keys at that time, and I went home being able to make an area tile map. At first, the sand key was a labor of love with just a ridiculous amount of table calcs, min and maxed. It was very difficult, but when you release those horizontal and vertical templates, it's really a game changer. So thank you for that. And then Kevin, you know, your design work is amazing as well. Just Tornado is super cool. Cumulus didn't accumulate is a very pretty take on a viz that I've seen before, but I just think it speaks volumes to your approach in dashboard design. And finally, that new Beatles collab with Adam is super cool. I'm looking forward to diving into that a little bit more in depth after this. And of course, finally, thanks to Jagruthi, Raven, Nicole, and Oana for submitting and competing. It's exciting to be a part of a community and coming together and seeing what we can do. So can everyone see my screen?
We can. It looks good.
Okay, cool, awesome. So without much further ado, let's get into it. This is my Presidents of the United States of America dashboard. The genesis of this really was, it was during quarantine. I was looking for things to watch, and these algorithms had suggested West Wing to me just a ton of times, and I just never sat down and did it. And I decided to check it out, and it's certainly an interesting show, but characters would talk about things that happened in history that I just had never heard of, and I realized just how much maybe I didn't learn or didn't know. And that kind of compounded with what was going on with the 2020 election and conversations about popular versus electoral vote and transitions of power. So it just really compounded this feeling for me of I just don't know as much as I should about historically how elections have gone. So I want to learn more. How long have our modern political parties been winning national elections? Which party has won more elections? We talk a lot, or we hear a lot, a lot of pundits describing how the electoral versus popular vote has shaken out over the years. So I wanted to take a look at that too. Does it skew more for one than the other, to one party versus the other? And how many presidents inherited their office? And people kind of talk about this pendulum of politics, right, where it swings one way. Does that actually play out in the data? So these are all kind of questions that I sought to answer, and I kind of learned some interesting things along the way. So let's take a look at the dashboard and start using it. So right at the top, we have just kind of your intro, just, what this is about, and some basics on how to use it. But since I'm walking you through it here, we'll just voice over. Top left, you have it's essentially the map of the United States, which reveals the electoral college results in any given election year. Below that, you have a table for those votes. You can determine, it's great seeing them visually, but of course, it's handy to have a crosstab as well to see the actual numbers behind that. And then also calculating the percentage share within a pie graph, excuse me, a donut chart below the crosstabs. So we're taking a look at Joe Biden here, current president, so we can see how the election of 2020 shook out, which states went blue, which states went red, and we can see Joe Biden here winning 57% of the electoral vote versus 52% of the popular vote. So the way that a user would use this dashboard is using what I call the tower of power over here. So any president, we have the presidents listed in descending order here, ending with George Washington all the way at the bottom there. But let's just take a look at what happens when somebody selects a president on the tower of power. So let's go ahead and switch it over to Dwight Eisenhower. And a few things change here, right? We can see, at least the first election, President Eisenhower won. The electoral map changed, right? It's certainly more red here. Eisenhower was a very popular Republican president, especially electorally, and we can see that shake out here in the election of 1952. And here we see a story that I actually have started to see play out as I built this dashboard. The popular vote actually does not skew that heavily as often as the electoral vote does. Historically, the popular vote has really ranged between 50 or 60%, but the electoral vote tends to swing more heavily in favor of one candidate than the other. So we'll take a look at that as we look at more presidents here, but just wanted to point that out. As you click around, you'll start to uncover insights perhaps that you might not have known before, just seeing it in chronological order. Another thing to point out here is, Hawaii and Alaska disappeared off our map because those states were not able to vote in that election. The first election we see that happen is in 1960 here with John F. Kennedy. We can see it's certainly a more even election there, but you can see Alaska and Hawaii populate here. So I mentioned transitions of power earlier, right? So one thing that I wanted to take a look at is when we look at historically, each president ascending up this tower here, unfortunately, historically we have had, presidents inherit the office due to, death, assassination, or resignation. So I wanted the Tower of Power to reflect that in a way that you could actually see, between Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson, what degree of Lincoln's second term did he serve? So the the tower does preserve that, and it's actually really cool going historically through, and you can see, we'll take a look at this in a minute, but William Henry Harrison here is the president to have served the shortest term of any other president. But you can see certain presidents certainly have more of that row than others. I'm gonna talk about a glitch here. I don't know why Gerald Ford and Richard Nixon don't share a line, but they should. Other than that, though, you can see here, with Abraham Lincoln between Andrew Johnson, we can see certainly the first election, but you can also click here on the second election that Abraham Lincoln won in 1864, certainly more red than blue there. But the Viz also needs to be smart enough, right, that if we select a president who inherited the office, that it updates to say that there's no election being held and why there was no election held. Okay, moving forward, I've always been a fan of these linearity charts where you take a running sum and you compare usually quarters or months, within the competitive set, where is this month versus others. But I thought it would be an interesting application here to basically build this kind of step line graph where you started to look at, the history of which party was active. So starting with George Washington, famously the only independent president we've had, and then of course, moving to the Federalist Party, and then the Democratic Republican Party gets a pretty steady run here, starting with Thomas Jefferson. The last election they win is with James Monroe. Goes down to the National Republican Party. More on John Quincy Adams in a minute. But it's really interesting when I started to take a look at when did the modern political parties actually, make it onto the scene? When did they start winning elections? And we can see the Democratic Party won their first election in 1828 with Andrew Jackson. And it actually wasn't until many years later with President Abraham Lincoln, election of 1860, that the Republican Party won its first election. And you can see here, even though Democrats started winning elections earlier, Republicans probably had just historically, they would win consecutively more often than Democrats up until maybe Franklin Delano Roosevelt's 4 election wins here, leading up to his death, and the presidency was passed to Harry Truman at that point. Finally, talking about that push-pull electorally versus the popular vote, you can certainly mouse over this legend here to determine when these parties were active, but also just kind of speaking to the push-pull electorally versus the popular vote, we can see it's actually a lot more even for the popular vote. It doesn't really swing as wildly, but when you mouse over certain presidents, you can really see, even though Dwight Eisenhower here winning 58% of the popular vote, relatively middle of the road. Certainly when we compare it to this line item above, where we see Dwight Eisenhower winning 86% of the electoral vote. So just wanted to show these swings tend to skew more heavily in the electoral vote than historically they have for the popular vote, which interestingly enough has been fairly even throughout our history, with the exception of a few years here and there. So that's how the main dashboard works. Of course, one thing I wanted to put together is just kind of these different dashboard cards where you could click into some sort of insight or maybe some question that either I had going into this project or that came up, as I went along. One important one is, how many presidents inherited the office? So just taking a look at excuse me, the 9 presidents who inherited here. We can see, the reasons why, whether it was assassination, natural causes, or resignation, that their predecessor passed it down to them. And you can see all the presidents, their terms, how many days in office they served, listed in descending order. And we also have some portraits. I kind of like how it goes from color to, black and white as we start getting to, before I guess photography was a thing, or maybe they just had like daguerreotypes or whatever that photography style is called. Of course, you can, on any of these cards, you can hit back. And please yell at me if I'm over time. You can hit back, and just going through these different stories, I found were very interesting. I know we looked at the push and the pull, but a different way to look at that is in descending bar charts and looking at who was the most popular electorally, who was the least popular, and then most popular in the popular vote, etc. One thing that stood out to me was John Quincy Adams. I didn't understand how he won an election with 43% of the popular vote and even less of the electoral vote. But when I looked it up, it turns out that the Electoral College actually could not land on a winner that election year. So it was decided by the House of Representatives. So it's kind of cool. Building out of Viz, it actually made me ask questions that I wouldn't have known to ask beforehand, but I've learned a lot kind of going through it, and I think that's cool.
Hey, Matt.
Hey.
Quick question. So you're getting a lot of comments from folks that love the Viz and have asked like if they could download it. And so we've dropped a link to Tableau Public, but can you also mention where you got the data?
That would be a great thing for me to mention. Thank you. Yes. So just to simplify it, down at the bottom, I said data from Wikipedia, but obviously that's kind of a cop-out because Wikipedia is massive. The way that I got the data was just clicking around essentially on Wikipedia until I found anything remotely resembling a flat table. And then this is super cool. In Google Sheets, there is an import HTML command. So it's just equals import HTML. And then the URL, I think it has to be in quotes, but it's cool. Basically, it will search for a table on Wikipedia or another site. And if there are multiple tables, you have to specify which one. But basically, it'll just ingest that table directly into G Sheets, which is essentially how I built this out. I did that for, presidents and their kind of personal information, and then I did that for electoral history and a few different data sets that I ended up merging together. I can't remember if I used prep or if I just unioned them, joined them in Tableau. It might actually be using the relationships thing now that I think about it.
This was excellent, Matt. I think I'm not 100% sure on our schedule, but we may want to have Ken and Kevin come on for, I believe they're going to make a few comments. And if you want to keep sharing your screen, that'd be totally cool.
Awesome.
Thanks again, and congratulations for being a finalist and putting this together. It was so good.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, so I just have a couple of comments. Matt, great presentation. I just love the the explanation of how this works, and just really well presented. There were a lot of things I liked about this. I think 3 of the charts in particular, I just love the ones. If you could scroll down to the bottom, the 3, the running total chart, and then the 2 area charts, I thought were to me, those were like the stars of this visualization. And I thought the area charts at the bottom were really interesting. Did you just add the highlight action to that recently? Because it seems like recently I looked at it, and that was one of the comments I had, that it would be great to have that interactivity, but it hasn't now. So, but yeah, it's really interesting. I noted 1984 with Reagan, and he had won 59% of the vote and 97% of the electoral votes. And I just saw some of those things were really super interesting. I think, if there was one criticism I'd have is I feel like those charts deserved more, deserve to be to play a larger role. So I would just like them to have been bigger and, had a little bit more focus on the viz, but otherwise, in general, I just thought this was a really great visualization and tons of really interesting information and ability to dig into that further. So great job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's great hearing that feedback from you. I really appreciate it.
We did have another question, just real quickly before we move on. Somebody asked how long it took to gather the data and build the viz.
I don't know. It was definitely, I think, maybe more time spent on data collection, and I would just constantly find holes in the data. I still have a few. I think one in particular is I really want to be able to mouse over the states and get the actual number of votes that was, but I just wasn't able to really build that into the data set. So as far as how long, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks, but that wasn't constant work. It was very boom or bust when I had a holiday or it was 2 days before.
Great, thank you. Karen, you were going to introduce the next person. Thank you so much, Matt. That was awesome. Incredible.
It really was really good work.
Okay, Matt, you need to go through all of the comments now. Down at the bottom of Zoom, you should be able to click on that.
Yeah, you should definitely do that because people had so many nice things to say and they were very impressed. All right, I think next up we have Jagruthi. I hope I said your name right. I'm so sorry. Believe it or not, I've been practicing the names. It's still like tough. I don't know why.
No, you're good.
You feel free to share your screen and you'll now have like 10-ish minutes.
Sure. Hi,
and tell
everyone.
us a little bit as you're getting started too, just like about the topic and maybe how long you've been using Tableau.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jagruthi Mothukuri. I have been introduced to Tableau. It's been 7 years. I have worked on other BI tools before, but when I got into Tableau, it's like a magic. It's so cool tool to use, right? It's very user-friendly. But on a day-to-day job, I didn't get much to create dashboards. It's more on like admin type, right? So I joined Twitter this year, and the data from the Tableau family out there is so awesome. They built it's a magical dashboard to see there. So I got inspired from those. So that's the reason I'm here today. And regarding this dashboard, so since COVID, we didn't get to go so much, right? So recently we went to a park and I was surprised there was this guy smoking near the park. So that's where this topic come into. So I came home and started researching like how we get impacted or affected by the secondhand smoke, like what they call us as passive smokers, right? So that's where the topic came from. Okay. And before I dig into the dashboard, I would like to say the main reason today for me to join is the twins. I'm huge fan of your work, and the blogs are so helpful in every aspect. Like if you have a question, 9 out of 10 times it's in your blog for me. So thank you so much. Yeah. So when it comes to dashboard, so when I started collecting the data, I was so in looking for like how like what was the impact of this smoke on like non-smokers. So that's where I started collecting data. So the data I picked it from CDC. And there is one website where they did a lot of experiments, researchers. It's called InnoGen, and of course Wikipedia. That's the data for this dashboard. Okay, so on the dashboard you can see that two types of smokes. One is a mainstream smoke and the side stream smoke. So 50% of these passive smoke is from the mainstream smoke, and other is from side stream smoke. Do you guys see my screen?
Yes,
We do.
can see
We see it.
It's public is going a little slow for you.
Okay.
I'll pass the link off in the chat too.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's the percentage of mainstream smoke and the side stream smoke. So the mainstream smoke is the one. Oh, it came back. Okay. It's a one which is exhaled by the smokers, and the side stream smoke it's the end of the cigarette smoke. That's called the side stream. So that's the way the percentage is. And this I would like I thought of capture the harmful chemicals by the smoke, right? So there are like 7,000 chemicals from have the secondhand smoke has 7,000 chemicals, and out of it 250 chemicals are known to be toxic or cancer, and 70 are cancer related chemicals, right? So that's each spot in here is 70 chemicals, so we have like 100, so 100 spots, so it's 7,000 chemicals in total. And these chemicals are categorized into three, like the toxic metals and cancer chemicals and poison gases, right? I thought of doing a compound structure for these chemicals, but it's too hard for me. So I cheated a little bit. And I know that on maps, I can get the hexagonal shape. So I picked, for each category, I picked a map and assigned the chemical so that I can get the hexagon shape as I needed. That's how the harmful chemicals is captured in this section. And this section is on smoky surroundings, which tells me like what is the percentage of smoke we inhale by the distance from the smoker. You can see even up to 20 to 25 feet, we still have 46% of smoke we inhale from the smoker, right? So even the 25 feet is not good to be near a smoker, right? That this chart gives me that information. Okay. And the smoke driving. So smoke, they conducted a research, like if a person smoke smoke in a car, so how much time it will take to get those chemicals go out of from car. So even you can see, even after 30 seconds of finishing, there is about 16% of particles present in air. Even after 0 to 1 minute or 3 to 4 minutes, it's still the chemicals of that smoke is still in the present in the air. So as a co-passenger, we may get so I think we can call them like smokers, even though we are not smoking there, because even after 3 to 4 minutes after the smoker is done with him, still there is the particles present in that smoke. That's a section which collects information of smoke driving and what is the percentage of chemicals. And here you can see over the period, it is the second-hand smoke exposure has been decreased from 87.9% to the 25.2%, right? But it's not. I couldn't find the recent recent years percentage. That's the reason I just took up to 2014. Okay, and this section is about health effects of the secondhand smoking. You can see since 1964, approximately 2.4 million non-smokers have died from health problems caused by exposure to the secondhand smoke. That's very, very ridiculous big number, right? So the main exposures are at home, inside vehicles, and public spaces. So public spaces are is the most percentage where we get exposed to the secondhand smoke. And at home, mostly the kids, right? At home, if the parents have smoking habits, it's at home, the 15.5% of the kids are exposed, and inside the vehicles. And due to this secondhand smoke, you can see every year, 7,300 people are died due to the stroke, and 8,000 due to the lung cancer, and 34,000 due to heart diseases. The common health problems in kids or in fans due to second smoke is the asthma, respiratory, ear infections, and SIDS. So these are the common problems. And in the adults, it's a heart disease, stroke, and lung cancer. So these are the health effects due to the secondhand smoke. So I added a little section to how to avoid, but there is no safe level where you can say secondhand smoke is okay. So if you are a smoker, quit smoking. So that is for your sake and for your family's sake. And don't allow smoking in your home. Don't allow smoking in your vehicle, even with the windows down. Patronize business with no smoking policies. Yeah, that's it about my dashboard today.
It's great job.
Great job.
Somebody mentioned in the chat, that you went with the, infographic approach. Totally. Yeah. I mean, this looks different than what we might see on our work dashboards. And I love that approach. I mean, it's something I do in my Tableau public work a lot. This actually reminds me of a viz that I did with Lindsay Betzendahl. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the cheetah collaboration. Yes. Yeah. It just has some of the same elements, and just thought it kind of had a similar look and feel to its site. So, yes. I thought that was well done. Love the, it is Tableau public work. Maybe we would do something a little bit different. Maybe we use bar charts or something like that at work, but I love the different approaches, the different creative chart types. What Lindsay dubbed the plum pudding chart, with the 100 spots. Yeah. So I think that's a great way to look at the data. Really obvious that, there's this, the small percentage there. So a couple of things I thought were really nice, just the way you use text to really bring out certain things. Use bigger font to talk about that 2.4 million. And yeah, if you want to scroll down there, it's like, how crazy is it to think that 2.5 million people have died because of someone else's smoking, not because of their own. That's just an insane statistic, and makes you want to go, anybody that smokes, just like, come on, you need to quit, because it's not affecting just your health, but others as well. So love the creativity, very engaging. If I were to say one thing, I think that maybe you could utilize a little bit more white space. One of the things that when I was looking through it is I wasn't sure, you have lots of little elements here, and I wasn't sure where to go to next. How does this thing flow? So a little bit of white space would probably help. You could certainly, one idea is, and I've done before, is the number of the sections, or you can use sort of this almost like a line to kind of help the reader kind of understand where to go to next. But generally speaking, white space usually is a good thing to kind of help guide someone's eye. But, that's, just picking on, trying to find something to pick at. It's really, really well done. Love the infographic approach, love the creative charts, and yeah, very nice job.
Thank you so much for the feedback.
Okay, so who do we have up next? I'm so sorry. I need to have our little schedule. Is it Nicole and Juana? Yes. All right. Go ahead and feel free to turn y'all's cameras on and share your screen. And this is our final presentation.
Huh. I have to unmute myself. Thank you so much, Karen. We're really excited to share our dashboard with everyone today. I'm Nicole Klassen. I'm a senior decision support analyst at Emory University. I've been working in Tableau for 5 years. I started actually out at University of Cincinnati, but I really got into Tableau and going beyond bar charts about 1.5 years ago when I came down to Emory. At Emory, my focus is on student success and the analytics for that.
Hello everyone, my name is Juana Todoranja. I am a senior decision support analyst at Emory University. where I manage survey research and university rankings. Both of those areas have new data coming in all the time that we always have to clean and update. I started using Tableau almost 4 years ago, and while it took a lot of convincing and hard work to get our senior leaders to purchase Tableau for our office, we very quickly realized that it was the right move. It was a real game changer, not only in how we share and present information, but it also helped us review and validate our data. So everyone is really happy now that everyone in our office is using Tableau and loving it. So let's take a look at our dashboard.
So originally, when we heard about this Iron Viz ATL, Juana and I got together. We knew we wanted to do a team project, and we decided we really wanted to use Spotify music. It was something that we've seen some really cool vizzes on, but we've never pulled it or used it ourselves. And so this was originally going to be about how the music that people listen to has changed pre and post pandemic. And we spent a lot of time like learning Spotify data, figuring out how to pull it and analyze it. And we found there was no change. So we decided, all right, now we're going to have to pivot and choose something else. So we decided to focus on an artist instead and really just look at an artist's music over time. And we settled on Dolly. We were going to, again, plans change. We're going to do Dolly's music, but just the more we learned about her and learned about her life, instead of focusing, we decided to just look at all these different aspects of her life and really just focus on Dolly as a person rather than her music only.
So as Nicole mentioned, we collected a lot of data. Once we started researching, we learned that she's even more prolific than we thought. So the first lesson that we learned when we started this project was that you have to just go ahead and get in Tableau and start looking at your data. Otherwise, we were going to spend all of our available time just pulling and cleaning data. So once we got in Tableau, we decided to lay out our dashboard as a children's book. We were inspired by Dolly Parton's song, Coat of Many Colors, which is also a published children's book. And this allowed us to organize our dashboard cover with these really colorful tabs to the right. And these tabs not only allow for easy navigation to the different visual experiences of our dashboard, but also it allowed us to design each section differently. So each tab will take us through her career, her music, her television, her writing, her charity, and then an overview of her life. And Nicole is going to lead us through her life.
Maybe. All right, it looks weird now. Hopefully everyone can still see it. So
we can see it.
As Juana said, you know, we wanted to really put together kind of her career, but then also look at when in her career she was doing these different activities. So we decided to go with the Radial Bar Chart. And for example, if you click on music, kind of the spikes in her music were in the 70s when she put out a lot of that, but she's continued doing it through the career up till today. But when you look at her television appearances started coming in the later half of her career. 2006, she had the most events. And so if you click on it, you can see a lot of it was kind of coming on these talk shows. So as her career has progressed and as she has done these different events, she's starting to get more the TV recognition as well. So we really were interested to see how all of this kind of connected together for her. And we decided, you know, if we're going to look at her life, we want to do a timeline. And actually, there was a great blog by the Ferlage twins on how to create an interactive timeline. And so we have that up here for people to click on and go through as well.
So this is where we use the Spotify data. Across the top, you can see key metrics of her music career, such as 142 total albums. We looked at the Spotify song analysis data, and we found that liveness is the measure with the most variability over time. So we visualized that in the area chart by year, average liveness. And what you'll notice some peaks in 94, 2004, and 2009, and those correspond with live album releases. And below that, we visualized all of her songs, and we decided to visualize it this way to really show the body of her work. So each dot represents a song. If you hover, you can see additional information such as release year and album, and then all of the Spotify measures. If you select the song, so if you click on the dot, all of the Spotify measures will be visualized in the spider chart to the right, which we were really excited to create because we don't really get to do stuff like this in our daily work.
As Juana mentioned, one of the reasons, instead of doing just an infographic style or one dashboard to make it as a book, was so we could have different styles for these different areas. So for her television, we pulled the IMDb data, which was another data set we hadn't used before. And as with everything that Dolly did, she had a lot going on with there. So instead of doing more of an analysis and like really looking into the amounts and types, we decided for this one to do more of just like a fun user immersion. So to use this one, the dial on the TV is a pie graph, and you can click on the different type of television appearances that she's had. And when you click on one of these, it'll update the Dolly guide below as the TV guide style. So if you want to watch one of her movies, you can choose a movie that came out, and it will update the television with her role in the movie, and then if there were any ratings in the data, the ratings that she had for that one.
So this is the writing area. We knew that she was a songwriter. We didn't know that she also wrote several books, and she wrote for television and movies. But we decided to focus on the song Coat of Many Colors and visualize the lyrics to the song. Not only because this is Dolly's favorite song, but we just really wanted to create a chord chart. We were inspired by Data Viz by Laura Lenford, which in turn was inspired by Ken and Kevin. So we thought it was just so beautiful and so cool, and we really wanted to see how it was done. So the way this works, each dot around the circle represents a node. If you hover over it, it will highlight the yellow lines that connect to the words that follow it in the song. And to the left, you can see which word Nicole selected. It's the word I, which appears in the song 18 times, and it's followed by all of those words below it.
The last one we wanted to showcase was her charity work. One of the reasons is because one of the reasons we chose Dolly was because at the time we were trying to figure out what to do. All the news stories had started coming out about how she had donated to the Moderna vaccine development. And so we knew that charity was a big part of her and her career. So we highlighted her Dollywood Foundation. That's the main support of that is the Imagination Library. And the Imagination Library is really cool. If anyone hasn't heard of it, I have a toddler and everyone keeps telling me about the Imagination Library. It will send a book for free to children from birth to age 5. And it's an international effort now. Literacy is something that's very important to Dolly. So her Dollywood Foundation, it gets the highest ratings from Charity Navigator. It supports the Imagination Library. After the Tennessee wildfires, she did a lot of support to help that as well, and continues to support people who are still dealing from the effects of that. And then the last one is scholarships for students, high school students in her hometown to help them go to college. as I said, we were looking through this and we knew that she had donated to this Moderna vaccine development, which was not was not through her Dollywood Foundation. So we did a lot of Google searches to find the other kind of areas that she had donated to outside of the Dollywood Foundation. And so down here, you can go through and see some of these other organizations that she's contributed to. We are so excited to be sharing this with you guys. I'm so grateful for the Atlanta TUG for putting this on. We really learned a lot about Tableau. We got to do a lot of stuff we don't get to do at work, which is super fun. And I know for me, and I think Juana as well, this really opened the door for us to the Tableau community. As I said, I've been working with Tableau for 5 years. I do remember when I first got into Tableau, I had a coworker try to describe the data fam to me, but I was so just overwhelmed with analytics because of my first analytics job. Like I didn't understand what she was talking about. So it's been super great to like jump in and meet everyone and just get into like these fun ones that we get to do, these fun visits we get to do outside of work.
Yes, I agree with Nicole. I had a very similar experience, and I also want to say thank you for having us. We've been attending this meeting for a very long time, so we are just so excited to present here. It's just made our not just day, but our week and our month. Thank you again.
A great presentation to both of you. There's so much to like about this one, and who doesn't love Dolly Parton, right? So it's a great topic. I love the whole storybook layout because it really makes it easy to sort of step through it and understand where to go next. And having done things like this, I know that this is a lot of work. I mean, so the attention to detail and taking the time to build that navigation, and I really appreciated that you did that. Of course, bonus points for using a few of our blocks. I'm always happy to see that. I really loved like the radar chart on the Spotify metrics. I thought that was like a great way to show that, those different qualities of the songs. I thought that was fantastic. I love that you focused on the charity. The last piece was a focus on the charity. I would have loved to see like, maybe like a call to action or some ability to like then go and donate or something like that to the charity. So something like that would have been a great addition, I think, on that. There's so much that I loved about this. I don't really have a lot of feedback. I mean, I think I would go back to one thing that Kevin said on the last one is, there are a couple of places where things are a little bit cramped, where I think, just a little bit of white space and giving some breathing room on some of these things would have helped a little bit, but that's a pretty minor one. I just really, overall, I just really, really love this viz.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we get to give the awards out now, Karen and Nelson?
Yes, I was just about
Anna?
to say, I'm so sorry, guys. It takes me a second to get back the video on and unmute. But
you're
yes,
fine.
if y'all would like to, so Ken and Kevin have some slides, and they'll pull those up and just kind of walk through who won what. And I will leave my camera on just to kind of like demonstrate and be Vanna and show the appropriate trophy. So go for it,
All
guys.
right, we'll start off. Let me share my screen. And everybody see that?
Yes.
All right, these are my sloppy slides. They don't look as good as yours. So, all right, so we're going to be giving away a bunch of awards. We've got, so some people will get multiple. We've got best storytelling, most engaging, coolest features, notable newbie, best design, and the hackiest. And then we decided we would give out our an award for our overall favorite. I don't think Karen has a separate trophy for that, but we will.
No, but it's
give
just
it out
meaningful.
anyways.
It's meaningful coming from you guys.
All right, well, appreciate that. So, Ken, I'm going to hand it over to you. You can do the first three of these.
Right. So we're going to start off with best storytelling. And the winner of that is Nicole and Oana. I just talked a little bit about this. I mean, I just love the storybook nature of this, and how it just goes through all these different aspects of Dolly's life and her career. So to me, this was a clear winner of the best storytelling. So congratulations.
Congratulations, y'all. And in addition to this awesome trophy, we also have a $50 Tableau gift certificate for the winners. So for every award.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Next award, coolest features. So we gave this award to Matthew for his president's viz. You know, as he showed, there were a bunch of really interesting things there. The charts that I loved at the bottom, I thought were fantastic. I love the, you know, the tower of power on the right. There were just lots of really good things in this viz. So congratulations, Matt.
Congratulations, Matt.
Thanks y'all very much. It means a lot.
All right, and the last one for me is the best design, and we gave this one to Nicole and Oana. So congratulations on that.
Congratulations, you guys.
All right, my turn. We are going to move on to most engaging. Most engaging for me, and I probably maybe gave it away when I was giving feedback, was for Jagruthi. This is only half of the viz, but this one I saw immediately and was just like, I can't wait to explore it. So lots of cool different charts and different features. And so congratulations to Jagruthi on most engaging.
Great job, Jagruthi.
Thank you so much.
Next award is Notable Newbie. This is going to go to the person, unfortunately, that couldn't make it today, Raven. We haven't spent much time looking at her dashboard, but she made a nice business dashboard looking at Kickstarter data. Like the fact that it hit some simple charts and easy to read, quick insights. So congratulations on that, Raven. All right, Hackiest. Hackiest is, if you're not familiar with the term, it's kind of like where you hack Tableau to do things it's not supposed to, and got, you know, different kind of crazy things that you can do in a viz to make it do the things it's not supposed to do, if that makes sense. So we're going to give this to Matt. So lots of cool features in this. Ken talked about it a lot. We won't go into it too much, but lots of cool features, and congratulations on that, Matt. And Ken, I guess,
Matt.
Thank you.
All right. So our overall favorite, are we going to try and like be really silly and announce this at the exact same time, Ken?
If we can.
I don't know if
it's necessary.
All right. I won't do that. You can just kind of echo me if you want. All right. Our overall favorite out of all of them, they were all really great. We loved them all. Had a lot of fun exploring them and a lot of fun judging them. But our overall favorite was, I'm going to do a drum roll. I thought Karen would have that prepared, but she didn't. But,
I put the drum roll in the chat.
Is Dolly by Nicole and Juana. So just so much fun with that viz, and such a great storytelling viz, and great analytics and great charts. And although it was a tough decision, our overall favorite went to Nicole and Juana. So I'll repeat it again. Great job to everybody. Thanks to all who have participated, and well done.
Good job, everyone.
Thanks to all the finalists. Like, it takes a lot of work, we know, to put those together. I'm looking at some of them. I don't know how much time people spent on those. They were amazing. But I'm just really impressed that you guys put in that amount of effort. Hopefully everyone learned a lot doing it and had a good time. So thanks. And thank you so much, Ken and Kevin, for judging and for taking the time today to join us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having
No problem at all.
Does anyone have any questions? Ken and Kevin have agreed to like answer any questions, take some questions. If you guys have any questions for them and want to throw those in the Q&A, they'd be glad to answer some questions.
And y'all, while we're waiting for y'all to throw some thoughts into the Q&A, I think it's worth saying, you know, it's a cool moment when the Tableau community pops off the page. You know, it's one thing when you're on Twitter and you see Vizes and, you know, you've got the twins and they're awesome, right? But what I can tell you from personal experiences that as amazing as they are at Tableau, they're even better human beings. And so I think that's a cool piece of what we'll all get back when we get back to things like being in person at ATUG and going to Tableau conference and whatnot, is you get to see the human being behind the viz, and you get to see the, these guys are not just Tableau tricks and Zen Master rocks. These guys are great people. So, ask them anything you want to, but it's a real privilege for us to have the opportunity to host you guys. So thankful that y'all were able to be here with us.
Thanks, Nelson.
We're gonna get a big head here after this.
That's it.
Thank you, Nelson.
We make rock stars here, man.
I was going to ask Ken and Kevin maybe to just share a little about, you guys were able to learn Tableau very quickly. I think everyone would love to hear just any comments you have, any suggestions on how do you manage to get up to speed and become an expert at something that fast?
And start it with the beginning, like start with the origin story, because I know there's it seems like one of y'all kind of pulled the other one in, and then I'd love to hear kind of like Karen's point, like, how do y'all do this? Like, y'all are nuts. So start at the beginning. I'd love to hear like the 3 to 5 minute version of the beginning.
I have an IT background. I've been in IT for 20 some years and still am in IT. I'm in sort of the analytics side of our IT group. And I was working with other tools in this space. And as I was looking for a new job about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess at this point, I just kept seeing Tableau, and I think Kevin had a similar experience and he'll share that, but just kept seeing Tableau and I was aware of Tableau, but I'd never really used it. And so I got a job, they used Tableau. I thought, well, this is something I can probably learn at least the basics of quickly. So I did an online training course. It was something offered by Matt Francis. It's a great course. And just kind of learned the basics, and then started the job and never really used it because I was busy in sort of this more architecture type position thing that I was working on. But then I just started like playing with Tableau and my like these personal ideas, things I wanted to explore. And I just fell in love with it right away. Like it just clicked, and I understood it and got it. And so much of my learning and just came from sort of engaging with the community, just playing with things, practicing, not even using it really at work, just doing these things sort of for fun. And so I think just the fun of it and learning from the community and learning from all these great things that other people were posting out there is really kind of how I got there. I actually have a blog post, and I'll put it in the comments, on 4 tips for mastering Tableau. And just real quickly, it's you really need to get that foundational training. The second thing is just practice. In order to get good at anything, you need to practice. Third one is engage with the community, right? Because there's so many ways. You almost learn from just like osmosis and just sort of engaging with the community. And then the last thing is sort of turn that around and start teaching. Because when you start teaching anything, you have to really understand it in a deeper way than even you need to know for doing it. So those 4 things I think are kind of the plan I followed, and I'll let Kevin talk now.
Yeah, so Ken was using Tableau for 2 years. I think he was a Zen master like right before I became a Zen master right before I started using the software, and actually probably for the first year of him using it, I kind of made fun of him. I used to talk about him going to his nerd conference, and little did I know, oh my gosh. He at one point decided he was going to put his vizzes on Facebook, which was a horrible mistake, as me and a buddy just sort of like made fun in a light way. I wasn't like tearing them apart, but he didn't put them on Facebook very much longer after that. But I didn't get it, honestly. And it was a similar situation. I was in a job that I didn't see much of a future in, and started looking. I was working for a really big company, started looking for other analytics positions. I was in analytics, but just not using Tableau. And at every single one of the the job listings had Tableau as a requirement, every single one. And so it wasn't, oddly enough, you would think it was Ken who, and I think Nelson even said, kind of pulled me into it. It really wasn't. Sorry, I give Ken a lot of credit for my learning, but it wasn't Ken. It was just like, I got to figure out what the future looks like. And if Tableau is so important to all these other analytics roles, I better start learning it. So I did ask Ken, hey, how about you give me a little, the funny thing is I sent a text to Ken and said, all right, I'm finally ready to start learning Tableau. And he responded with a link to Matt Francis' Udemy video. I'm like, I got an identical twin brother who's a Zen master, and he's going to send me to somebody else to teach me how to use Tableau. I said, no, forget that. I want you to teach me, silly goose. So we did a 3-hour session, and yeah, it was the same thing. He said I was hooked immediately. And it didn't, you mentioned a couple of years or whatever becomes Zen. It's like, I always say my 2 years to become Zen was 4 years for most, because I probably spent that much time doing it. To the point where in the first couple of months, my wife was like, all right, I'm glad you found something, but you need to calm it down a little bit. So yeah, I spent a lot of time outside of work doing it. When you're sitting at kids' soccer practice, I've got my laptop and I'm, playing in Tableau. So yeah, it was just like an addiction, and it still is. And we still love to do it. We still love to write about it. And we still love to play with it and engage with the community. And Ken talked about the 4 tips. So anytime I get introduced to a new user on LinkedIn or Twitter, somebody messaged me and they kind of ask for advice, I give them 2 blog posts. I give them the blog post that Ken mentioned. Did you put it in the chat, Ken?
Did, yeah.
The 4 tips for mastering Tableau. And then I give them a blog post that I wrote and shared in January. And it's all about why and how to connect with the Tableau community. It is the most there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that are doing this in silos at work. And, but for me, the greatest thing that helped me, learn quickly, improve my skills is connecting with the community. Ken said, learning by osmosis. It is, you see somebody's visualization, you see some design technique, and whether or not you even dig into it, you have that in your register up here that you can always kind of go back to. You see blog posts posted, and even if you don't read it that second, that you can do that thing in Tableau, and you can go back to that blog post and figure out how to do it. So if people are out there and not, engaged with the data fam or the Tableau community, it is one of the best ways to learn and have a lot of fun, meet a lot of people, make Tableau conference way better than it is if you're not engaged. You walk into Tableau conference and, hey, Kevin, and you get to hang out with these people. It's makes a lot more fun. So yeah, that's kind of the story, and we're still loving doing what we do.
I think one of the things that you guys both touched on that is super important is the community aspect, and Kevin, you were just talking about it. And for me, when I think about the community, I think about it really in 3 terms. One is the one that we've talked about, kind of that, the Twitter, Tableau data fam of like all these amazing people that are all over the planet, right? But then, one of the things that I go back to when I first got started in Tableau, I was kind of on an island. I didn't really know anything about data, and I started playing with Tableau, and then I heard that there was this thing called the Atlanta Tableau User Group, and this would have been like late 2011, early 2012, and I just showed up, and so like and all of a sudden kind of realized like, man, I could do this. There's people here, and there's people to connect with in Atlanta that do this too. Like, and so I think it's also a big plug for the local community. And then the third piece of it, if you're in an organization of much size, the opportunity to connect with other people in your organization that are doing analytics and Tableau, and the community that can create as well. I know Chick-fil-A has a very thriving internal user group, Piedmont Hospital, the same. And if that's not something that exists at your organization, and yet, there's a bunch of people out there that are doing it, one is like, be that catalyst, be the one who kind of starts something. And it can be as simple as like a lunch and learn, especially now. It's like, you don't have to buy people lunch, they'll eat their own lunch. And But hey, we're going to spend an hour. We're going to talk about some cool stuff in Tableau. Let me pull up a blog post if you don't have content, or show off your own content or something like that. But the community aspect of this, one of the things I've always been impressed with, and I don't know if it's maybe just the type of human being whose brain is wired to do both technical and artistic things, at left side, right side. You don't run into the people who are just like way over here or way over there. For the most part, you run into some really cool and amazing people. And I've loved that aspect of the community. And, it's become not only, what I do for a living, but it's also become a lot of my network and my friend group. And it's just, it's awesome because, you find people that are passionate about the same things, and you get that alignment, you get to run together. So I love that you guys touched on that.
I do too. And I would also say one other thing that I think is so cool about it is like how willing people are to share their work. Absolutely. And their knowledge. Like, I don't think I've ever seen, people, it's as though people put their heart and soul into figuring something out. And then instead of just keeping it to themselves and trying to impress everyone with, I did this amazing thing, they also, like, in addition, write a blog post like with step-by-step instructions, like detailing for other people, like how you do this, and like how it's, and I feel like Ken and Kevin do that all the time, but they're also like not the only ones to do that. It's like very common. You have so many people that are willing to like share how they've done all these amazing things. And it's really made me learn kind of early on that if you're willing to put in the time, like if you're the type of person that's curious and wants to like get better and like grow your skills, it is just totally up to you, because you can certainly do that. Like everything that Kevin was saying about like I'm not 100% sure how he became a Zen master. I mean, 100%, I see why he is one. I don't understand how he doesn't sleep to do that, but I definitely think that it's an example of like, if people are willing to like really like reverse engineer other people's work and like really get in there and figure it out, if they have that drive, I can see how that's potentially possible, because people get so engrossed in it and passionate about it. And there's so many resources.
And the reason I started writing blogs is because of the other people that I learned from. I was learning from people like Matt Chambers and Pooja Gandhi and Adam Crayon and a bunch of other people, right? And I saw that they were doing this, and I got so much out of it as I started to realize, well, I have something to say as well, that I can add value. That's kind of why I started doing that, is just sort of to pay that forward. And I love doing it. And Kevin was the same, right? So.
And one other thing I'll kind of touch on, when Karen talked about, this network, we now have this huge network of people that I can hit up if I have a question about, I'm not a server expert. I hit up Zach Geis and David Pierce and others, Paul Banoob on a regular basis, because I've got these people as a network, because I've connected with them through this community. And I now have this really big network of people that I can ask anytime I need help with a problem. So it's a really powerful thing.
All right, Anna, what you got?
Yeah, we have another question about more of just like, we talked about practicing and learning this skill, but some of us are working in Tableau day in our job, and we're only working at like one type of chart, or we're constantly refining one area. How would you recommend someone getting more involved into like a passion project? I know that in your link you have Makeover Monday, but I think more of like, how do you, it's more of a time thing for some folks, right? It's like, okay, I have these resources. Where do I start? And how do I make time to not just be working on dashboards in my job, but doing something that creates, I can create something new.
I'll jump in, Ken. You look like you're thinking. I mean, for me, that community blog post that I shared has, and Ken's blog post as well, has lots of information about the different projects that are out there. You mentioned Makeover Monday, and there's Project Health Viz by Lindsay Betzendahl, and there's sports ones, and there's all kinds of Iron Quest that Sarah Bartlett runs. There's all kinds of cool community projects, and perhaps one of those triggers your interest. You know, there's people in healthcare, maybe you're interested in healthcare data. You know, maybe you love sports. But aside from that is, you know, exactly what I started doing. Probably my first 10 visualizations were just like, I'm really kind of interested in this. Let me kind of explore it. And it kind of turns into this, you know, viz what you love kind of thing, right? So if you're looking at data, you know, if you're really interested in basket weaving and you find basket weaving data, and, you know, that's a passion for you, it's easy to fall in love with that project and to, you know, have fun exploring that data in Tableau. So I think all the community projects are great. I would say 95% of what I do is just stuff that I'm interested in. So I really think that's it. And, you know, there's literally no pressure on when you're doing it by yourself. You know, you don't have to turn this thing out and have it done in a week. You know, spend months on it if you want. There's some people that I know that put out one viz every 3 or 4 months, and, you know, they work on it for 3 or 4 months. So there's no timetable. So viz what you love. I think that's really the key in to, you know, enjoying doing it when you're also doing it all day long at work. And when you're doing it for Tableau Public, there's no rules either, right? You can create crazy, Matt mentioned this tornado chart that I created. I mean, I would be shot if I did that at work, but it was fun to build outside of work. So there's no rules, have fun with it, and try some stuff that you wouldn't do in the office. So.
And you know, you might think that doing those crazy kinds of charts is just a waste of time, right? It might seem like you're not getting any benefit from it, but, you know, a large part of how I feel like I've really learned the ins and outs of complex features of Tableau, things like table calculations and LODs and all those kinds of things, is trying to force it to do weird things that I don't do maybe in my day-to-day job. So you know, anytime you're in the software at all, you're learning something, and if you're trying to push it to its edge and trying to force it to do things that it's, you know, doesn't maybe do necessarily out of the box, you're going to be learning and enhancing your skills. So, you know, my wife is a reading teacher, and she always says all reading is good reading. And I would say the same thing about practice, and, you know, in Tableau, all practice is good practice. You're always learning something and advancing your skills that way.
I love that. We have a couple more questions too come in. And I don't know how much time we have, but let's go with these next few questions. I think we're also starting to learn that we put those questions in Q&A. So those of you who didn't know that, we can put those in Q&A. All right, first question, or the next question. What's better, doing an LOD in Tableau desktop or at the data source level?
I'll take that one. And Kevin, you can give your feedback as well. So generally speaking, I always tend to argue for pushing as much to the data source as possible. You know, so when you introduce me, I mean, I own the entire stack of BI and analytics platforms at my work. And so that includes like doing data warehouse stuff. So my goal is always to push as much of that to the data layer as possible, because then I'm not the only one who's ever going to be using those data sources, right? You know, so if I can make that data sort of already there and available, that makes it easier for anyone who isn't an expert in LODs or table calcs or whatever to just sort of drag and drop those things. So as much as possible, I push that to the data layer. There are times though where you know, you need something to sort of calculate based on what pills are on the view, right? And sometimes you need to do those LODs or table calculations or whatever types of aggregations right within Tableau. So generally speaking, try to push it to the data layer, and then use Tableau when and where you need it. You need to do that.
I would have said the exact same thing. I think that, but most cases our data doesn't, you know, people that do this for a living probably aren't dealing with perfect data sources, and you're going to have to use a lot of fixed LODs. I use a ton of them, and I'm prepping my own data, you know, using SQL to pull it in. Sometimes you just don't have that luxury, right? So,
and this is a conversation you and Kevin and I have all the time, actually, right? Because, you know, we do like the data warehousing stuff, and we got, you know, these really clean data sets, and you know, to where our, you know, and I part of this because I'm on the IT side and Kevin is not quite on the IT side, right? So you know, we end up sort of preparing this data so that end users can go in and grab it, and we're trying to make it as easy for people. But when those end users are just going right at the data, then it's sometimes can be harder to do that structuring of the data, because you're getting into SQL and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people don't know that, right? So in some ways, it ends up giving you more power to do it right there within Tableau.
One thing I wanted to just piggyback on to kind of tie the last two questions together that just dawned on me, honestly, when you're talking about it, because some people here might not even know what an LOD is or the need for it. And when you're working with organizational data, and it's not really your data or your passion project data, sometimes it's even hard to know your calculations wrong. Like your number is off because you're not using an LOD or using the wrong LOD, and you don't know how to check that. But if you're doing your own little side passion project, because I know I learned so much doing that, and you know what the data should look like, and then you're going, oh, that's weird. Hey, so it also helps you sniff test, and then gets to this LOD side of what is this and why do you need to know that? That could be, we can do a whole ATUG presentation on
sniff test.
We'll sniff test, and then another one on LODs. So another question here, and we have just just 2 quick minutes, so maybe a 1 minute answer if you have it. What's better, published data sources or custom SQL? I don't know, that might not be a 1 minute answer.
Published data sources or custom SQL. I mean, I think those are, you could have a published data source that uses custom SQL.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Not, you know, I tend to avoid custom SQL. I like, you know, I like simple, clean data sources that I'm just dragging data out from my data warehouse. But again, I've got a bunch of tools that allow me to do that ahead of time. If you're an analyst and Tableau is the only tool that you've got, and you don't have, you know, those data prep type tools, then you might not, you know, then custom SQL might be, you know, one of your only options, right? So I always try to push as much of it to the data layer as possible. So if you've got something like Tableau Prep, I would rather you do Tableau Prep flow and then just drag and drop those data sources into Tableau Desktop. But, you know, that isn't always possible, right? So custom SQL, if you know SQL, go for it. I just recommend, you know, just find a way to document what that's doing, so that the next person who picks up your workbook and has to work with it, that they, you know, at least understand the basic concept of what that SQL code is trying to do.
Ken,
Put comments in your code.
There you go. Are you pro Noodle?
Yes, definitely pro Noodle.
Okay.
Yes.
Love it.
I think the Noodle and the relationship model. I mean, there are some things that don't work quite right with it. And I think they've documented that pretty well on the website, but I think that the Noodle simplifies and solves a lot of problems that that weren't solvable through physical joins in the past.
That's awesome. I think we might leave it right there.